Like this deadly disaster in Oklahoma on one of the state's busiest crossings.
It just collapsed right in front of me and people were driving off into the river.
A catastrophe that took down a vital bridge.
We had no idea how many people we had in the water, how many vehicles, nobody knew. It was quite a shock.
And a devastating tragedy that took everyone by surprise.
Nothing's indestructible. Everything has got its limits. We can break anything.
The Arkansas River is Oklahoma's largest waterway, and for small towns along its banks like Weber's Falls, it's all about enjoying the great outdoors. Norman Barton Jr. is a lifelong resident.
I grew up on this river, fishing, hunting all around it all my life. My dad used to tell stories about changing my diaper in the boat. This is home to me.
The Arkansas River is fantastic for more than just recreation and fishing. Every year, around 12 million tons of cargo are transported up and down the stretch of water.
We're in farm country. We're in coal country, steel country, all that, and it all travels up and down this river. And it's amazing if you sit out here and watch these barges. It's commerce at its finest.
And it's not just the waterway carrying cargo. Crossing the river is the I-40, a vital road link around 3 kilometers south of Weber's Falls.
The I-40 is the third longest interstate in America's highway network. It runs more than 4,000 kilometers, almost coast to coast, from California all the way to North Carolina.
The bridge was built in 1967 to keep traffic moving above and below. 4 lanes for vehicles and a nearly 100-meter wide shipping channel with the bridge towering over 18 meters above to allow larger vessels underneath. Former Fire Chief Jack Shackelford remembers it well.
Actually, I was growing up down here when they built the highway and the bridge. They had to raise the bridges for the tugboats and the barges, and they rerouted the highways. Interstate 40, it was one of the major interstates through Oklahoma at the time when they first built it.
The more than 600-meter-long bridge sits on 12 reinforced concrete piers. No easy task, as Professor of Engineering Steve Tipton knows well.
They actually run those piers all the way down to bedrock, and they'll set a cage of reinforcement bar, dump a lot of the concrete in there, get these piers set in there. They, when you look at them after they're up, you feel like, wow, that's indestructible.
Early morning, May the 26th, 2002, Memorial Day weekend. Norman Barton Jr. was competing in a fishing tournament south of the I-40 bridge. As Norman passed a buoy, he just happened to look up.
The bridge just actually collapsed right in front of me. Wow.
2 barges weighing more than 1,000 tons being pushed by a tug, the Robert Y. Love, had rammed into one of the piers 60 meters outside the main channel. The force of the impact caused a 150-meter section of the bridge to drop onto the barges and river below.
The next thing I know was cars driving off of it. They're driving along at 70 miles an hour and the whole world opened up. The bridge was gone and people were driving off into the river.
With cars and trucks in freefall, another fisherman grabbed his flare gun.
It just shot an orange stream up over the bridge and actually hit a truck right on the windshield. Just boom, and went up in the air. Well, that trucker jackknifed his truck on the highway, and that stopped traffic.
Quick thinking combined with a 1-in-a-million shot ground traffic to a halt. Former captain of Muskogee Fire Department, Jack Shackelford, was just coming off the night shift when he overheard a 911 call.
I heard the dispatch inside the station that there had been a collapse at the Interstate 40 bridge, in Weber's Falls, and I couldn't believe my ears, and they were calling for all help. So I asked the assistant chief on duty if it was all right if we took the rescue squad and came down here, and he said by all means.
But as they arrived on scene, the sheer horror of what they were facing was daunting.
It was quite a shock. The ramp going up to the bridge was still intact, but when we got to the top of it, the bridge was just gone. Where the barge had actually hit it, the bridge actually fell down on it and was sitting and was resting on the barge. And we had no idea how many people we had in the water, how many vehicles we had in the water. Nobody knew. You don't know where to start.
11 vehicles had either gone down with the bridge or driven off the freeway into the river. Norman found a truck driver trapped in his cab and about to go under.
He was just sliding, just trying to get a hold of anything before he went under that 400-foot boat.
Norman knew he had to act fast.
Tried to get a hold of his belt, but the current was so bad and he was just hanging on. But I finally got in the water, got a hold of him, and told my partner to get us out of here, get us out from under this thing.
But not everyone was so lucky. Rescue divers and anglers searched desperately to pull out anyone they could find.
Friends of mine that were pulling a guy into their boat. I mean, we looked, there was nobody else that could be saved. Nobody ever came up. There was only 3 people that you could actually saved, and we got them.
For Jack and the other teams, it was clear no one else was coming out.
We had to shift from being a rescue to total victim recovery. But it took all 4 days to get all the vehicles, to get them located, get them pulled out of the water, and to get the victims extricated from them.
Of the 19 people who went off the bridge, 5 survived, but tragically 14 died.
It's been a long time since I came by here with all these thoughts in my mind. I wasn't expecting to get emotional again like this. It's kind of bringing back some not so pleasant memories, I guess.
In the aftermath of the disaster, the first question was how had the Robert Y. Love missed the 100-meter wide navigation channel by so much?
Although huge, the barges were still only about 1/3 of the width of the shipping channel. The captain himself said it was easy to navigate and he'd safely done it hundreds of times. So the question was, what happened this time?
It turned out that while maneuvering the tug and barges to pass under the bridge, the captain of the Robert Y. Love suddenly lost consciousness.
Effectively, no one was steering, and the boat kept pushing the barges west out of the main channel, straight towards one of the bridge piers.
The barge left the river channel and actually hit this pier right here, knocked it completely down.
I don't know if he blacked out or passed out or what, but when he struck it, it just collapsed like a domino effect.
But how could one tugboat with 2 barges, traveling at around 10 kilometers an hour, take down more than 150 meters of concrete and steel? Professor of Mechanical Engineering Steve Tipton explains.
Nothing's indestructible. Everything has got its limits. You know, that material is just a bunch of atoms holding hands. If you push them hard enough to break their grip, they're going to come apart. That's kind of the way it works.
The culprit was the very material that gave the bridge its strength: concrete.
Concrete's brittle. That's a problem with it. But brittle material has a benefit that it can take compressive loading really well. The road's heavy and it's carrying that weight, and then vehicles go over it a lot and it's carrying that weight, but that's not a problem for those big columns. But if you give it just even a very light impact load, it can't handle it. That's just not what concrete's for.
These piers can easily carry the weight of nearly 20,000 vehicles rolling over them every day, but they're not designed to take sideswipes from massive barges.
These are just blocks made out of concrete. And I can put it like this, and I can stand on this guy, and you know, it's plenty strong enough to take that load, right? But even with just a little bit of an impact load, just not much, just tap it, you practically tap it, and it goes. That's a pretty good example of how intolerant concrete is to impact loading.
While the main piers beside the shipping channel were protected by steel and concrete islands on the upstream side, all the other concrete piers had been vulnerable to impact for decades.
Concrete's got a lot of pores in it. Pores aren't a big deal in compression. The problem with them is that if you simultaneously give them a side load, any kind of a crack or a pore or a flaw will just take off. And now it's got this huge weight on top of it too, and you're done.
With a vital road link gone, the bridge needed to be rebuilt, and fast.
It was absolutely amazing how quick they rebuilt this bridge. They ran crews 24 hours a day up here and rebuilt this bridge. I mean, literally pulled it out of the river.
Just 65 days after the tragedy, on July the 29th, 2002, the bridge was reopened, but this time with protection cells in front of all 12 piers, so that any wayward vessels would hit a cell and be stopped before it could damage the bridge.
When you've got a hazard, you have a responsibility to do something about it. So the number one thing you do about it is you try to prevent it. So that's what the barriers are for. They're sort of number one line of defense.
With the bridge piers now protected from all angles, the hope is that no barge or ship can ever threaten the bridge again.
A year after the disaster, a memorial was erected dedicated to the memory of the 14 people who sadly lost their lives.
This one was tough. It was really tough. It affects you. I mean, there's no other way to put it. It affected everybody.
You know, it turned into a terrible tragedy in split second. But I was glad to be where I was at the time. I didn't want to be, but I was. Just the right thing to do.